Hey, what's up, guys? This is Church of Caboose, and for today's Destiny 2 video, I thought we would talk a little bit about trials. I've had, I say a handful of people ask, like, hey, Caboose, why aren't you doing trials? Because, you got that flawless title and all the gear from last season, so you must be good or enjoy it. So why aren't you doing it this season? And I thought it might be a little bit easier and to kind of take some time, put all my thoughts together, and then make this video so that way if someone in the future is like, hey man, why aren't you doing trials? I can be like, here you go, watch the the video. So it's a little bit easier and maybe less whiny as opposed to other things. Now, obviously, there's a whole bunch of factors for why many people are not playing trials. Last I looked, which was the season of the Worthy, we were rather consistently around 100,000 people hopping into trials, and of course that includes things like recoveries. So you might have, say, 10 different accounts being played by one person, and so it might actually be significantly less than that 100,000 people. It could very well be more like 80,000 people, and then the other 20,000 might all be recoveries. So before we get too far on into this video, if you do enjoy the video, make sure you hit the like button as well as subscribe to my channel. That would mean a whole lot to me. I have some goals of things coming up in my life, and one of them is to hit a certain subscriber mark. I'm hoping to hit 500 before before school starts coming here, and I guess end of August. So that's kind of a really ambitious goal. But hey, you make 100% shot of the shots that you don't take. Wayne Gretzky / Michael Scott. So let's get on into the video. One of the things I really do not like about trials and has been keeping me out is the incentive to play. So I mentioned earlier I do have the flawless title. Not before anyone tries to think I'm some amazing PvP person. I am not. I just happen to be a person that's got a lot of raid abilities / connections, and so I would sometimes make these deals and be like, hey, like, you PvP Titan, you PvP sweaty god lord person of a guardian, I'll help you get your first raid clear and help you do things like get exotics and whatever if you'll help me get this triumph done. So that's basically how I got my flawless title done, as well as all of the loot. So I just don't really have much stuff to go after. Like, I'm not very good. I would say at best I am average at best. So trying to do something where hopping into a playlist where the majority of players by now are very, very good is not super enticing. I mean, if there were as adept weapons or even a different title with different triumphs, so this season's title is the same as last season. So the season 10, the title is called Flawless. Season 11, the title is called Flawless, and it's the same exact triumphs, the same exact title look, same exact seal name. So there's not a whole lot of a point of doing it. And I also happen to have full armor sets on two of the characters I really wanted to have full armor sets on. And I got rolls on the weapons that I wanted to have. So I'm not really jiving that much to go back into something when I don't really have those hookups anymore. What's one downside of doing the thing that I did is once you kind of help someone get what they want and they give you back, I don't really have a whole lot else to offer them. I can't help them get another first raid clear, you know what I mean? So I still don't have a whole lot of incentive to get back on into it. It's just, not necessarily worth the time. And I think it's a little bit different than incentive. So I know we have those they're not 3 weekly bounties, so that weekly bounty where you get the reward for 3 wins. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I already have everything, so that bounty's not going to do a whole lot for me. And then I just don't really it's just how much time it would take for me to get that bounty done or to even get a couple of wins is just not worth it. I could do a master nightfall in a half hour and get probably way more loot than I could in 2 hours of trials. So there's not a whole lot of the time efficiency for me to be doing trials. That's one of my big things with my channel, is trying to help everyone figure out time efficiency. I work full time. I recently got selected to go back into the Marines as an officer, so that my days have been crazy long. I usually wake up around 4 a.m. It's a little bit different because I've been recovering from an injury, but around 4 a.m. I'm not home till 5 p.m. I just don't have a whole lot of time, and so if something's not going to be maximum payout, I'm not going to really do it unless I have no reason to do anything else, because like I hit the max power, I got all the stuff I want. That'd be about the only reason why doing something like trials would make more sense to me. So maybe end of this season, I'll be doing more trials. Speaking of the officer thing, I'll probably do a video more explaining that. It's not going to impact the channel a whole lot, other than at least around probably 10 to 12 weeks or so. And then finally, it's just not fun. In order to do something, you got to be able to have fun with it. Now, that's kind of wraps in a whole bunch of things. I know I'm on Xbox, and so the level of cheating is not as high as it is on PC. Like, if you follow this guy named Righty, he's like every single weekend finding these insane cheaters when he's playing Trials nonstop, and he just keeps making videos on it. It's usually just taking the gameplay and putting it in. But it's kind of interesting to watch. Sometimes that does happen on Xbox. Like, you might be thinking, you can't, it's impossible. I looked it up. Apparently, it's actually completely possible. It's not a whole lot harder to cheat, like with aimbots and stuff, on Xbox than it is on PC. You just have to have some PC stuff, link things together, and there you go. So it's a little bit more difficult. It costs quite a bit more money because you have to have a PC and an Xbox, so most people just do it on PC. So it's not nearly as common, but it's definitely doable. What is more common is internet cheating, and that can get really, really tricky because it either makes your opponent look like they're cheating because of how the lag works out. They always know right where you're at. They're not missing a single shot, that kind of thing, because they have more time to shoot you because of how the internet lag's working. And then, of course, there's the people that intentionally manipulate and do things like DDoS or lag switch. I don't even know all the terms because I don't really, I'm not going to cheat, so like, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time looking up what all the options are. If I talk too much about it, then I'm telling you guys how you can cheat. So just know that people cheat, and it can be really difficult to tell if it's intentional or on purpose. And so that kind of does two things. One, it demoralizes you, because if you're the kind of person that errs on they're not cheating, then you're like, oh my gosh, I just really suck. This is awful. I'm having no fun. And if you're like me, who's probably watched way too many YouTube videos on this whole thing, and you're like, that mofo's cheating. Oh my god. Oh, and like, you just kind of get mad. And so it's not fun. One of the biggest reminders of that was when the Moments of Triumph seal title came out for this year, for 2020. There is a Triumph on it, which I wish I knew about, what I'm going to tell you guys after, that has win 7 matches in trials. So a couple of friends and I were like, hey, like, we do fine together in comp. Like, we don't expect to go flawless, but surely we can get a couple of wins a card and get this done in like 2 hours, was kind of our thinking. We were wrong. So we would easily win the first game most of the time. Like, not every time. So we win the first game, then get our asses destroyed the next game. Like, it was like winning your first game of comp when you're all at 0 points, and then the next game is a full stack of like people that have like 10 different accounts and they're all unbroken. Like, that's like how it felt going from that first win to that second game, trying to get that second win. And what we ended up doing was we just won a game, wiped. Because the logic makes sense. Everyone has to start on 0 wins, and so you're way more likely to play against someone at your skill level or worse when you're all at 0 wins. And then as soon as you win that first game, it just spikes to who in the skill levels of the people. And so that was a huge other indicator for us. It just wasn't fun. Like, if it was fun, we would be having more of a desire to try and push through to 3 wins, try and see if we can't get to 5, and not just like, oh my god, when can we finally get 7 wins done? All in all, it took us about 3 hours. So that kind of plays, I guess, to the skill level I have, and then with our group, and as well as what's going on with all of trials. And I really feel like the biggest thing for a game mode is it just has to be fun in order for it to happen. Now, I guess I will give some little end with some tips, or I guess thoughts I have about what would make it more fun, as well as bring in more of a player base. Having a large player base is really key. Whenever you get a really tiny player base for something such as trials, it tends to be the best of the best, which I get it. Someone's going to probably be like, but it's supposed to be miserable. It's endgame. It's trials. I'm like, all right, I get that. However, there's a certain point, like getting the flawless is the end game is supposed to be miserable. Getting like 3 wins should be fairly common. Like, it shouldn't be rare to have folks that can get to 3 wins consistently. Getting to 5 wins should be like, if I had to kind of ballpark it, in my opinion, like half the people, like half the folks can pretty consistently get to 5 wins, and then getting to 7 wins should be like a quarter of the people, and flawless would be like 10%, right? Like that's how I kind of see what trials should be. So that 7 flaw actually be the really sweaty, miserable, like, oh my god, pull my hair out. Not so much the lower level things, because they're powerful rewards, also, remind you. Like if they're pinnacle rewards, you might have more of a leg to stand on, for they should be miserable and for the best of the best. But they are powerful, so it kind of should be something that is not necessarily miserable to attain and takes all day. So some things we can do to try and make this more fun is we need to get a bigger player base. The bigger a player base there is, that means the wider skill ranges there is, that means there's a kind of an overall better experience for everybody. Like the fact I had a clanmate mention that they matched against Grenadier Jake and a couple of other big names doing a carry like in their first match, like on like 3 different cards in like the same day, is a little indicative of how small the player base is right now, at least on Xbox for trials. It's probably a little bit bigger on PC, but again, there's way more cheating on PC. So if we gotta try to do things to expand the player base, that's kind of my ultimate idea of how to try and make trials more fun. And ways you can expand that player base is, number one, we gotta have better anti-cheat. Like the fact that there's people still able to make videos on folks that have been clearly cheating for months, so like basically since trials started, if not before, with doing comp things, and they're still playing, to me is mind-boggling. There should be really obvious things, like if someone gets a one-shot kill with a hand cannon, obviously cheating. Someone spawns into the very first round of a game with another bomb, obviously cheating. Someone spawns in on a round that's any round, including round 4, just spawns in with heavy ammo, obviously cheating. Like those things should be huge red flags in whatever Destiny's anti-cheat system is, because I know they have one, it just sucks. Those should be immediate, like, hang on, kick the guy out of the match, or like not let him hop into the next one, something like that, until the systems had time to review. Some kind of a thing that like comp, you know, if you leave too many matches, you're temporarily suspended. Something like that for trials, but for cheating. It may not necessarily have to be a permanent ban, but if it was something that's like, our system picked up something kind of fishy, we were reviewing it, if you wish to challenge it, go to here, and for however many days, or maybe just this weekend of trials, you are not allowed to play, and your next weekend will be conditional upon us verifying you weren't cheating. Something like that would be really helpful, because that would reduce the cheaters, which would then bring in more people that are playing because it's less frustrating, and folks feel like I can actually play because these cheaters are getting punished, and so it's not as annoying as opposed to playing against a cheater, and then you're like, oh my god, they're not even going to get punished. Like, it doesn't matter. If I report them, I have to go through so many steps to even try and report them, and then there's hope they get banned, and even then they could just make a new account and hop right back in without too much effort. So we gotta deal with the cheaters. I'm not sure what the best solution is, but I think the one I suggested with like the temporary ban kind of a thing is a pretty good one. I think it's pretty good. We also gotta get better loot and incentives back in. One of the keys of any looter shooter is you shoot to get the loot. So if you have cool loot, you'll have people wanting to play and get the loot. If you have unique loot, same thing. So all they have to do is do stuff like adept weapons. That will help the folks that are really good at trials that just low card farm because they want to get that god roll shotgun or sniper rifle or whatever, to have incentive to actually go flawless more often than just like once that weekend. They might just do it once and then like, that was a pain in the butt. Now we're just going to win like all the low level games. It was not uncommon for me in season 10 to have wins 1 through 3 way sweatier than 4, 5, 6, and then 7 would usually be really intense because everyone, it's the same match. So it's really bizarre. You'd have like this threshold on the lower end that was actually what the upper end should have been. It was really bizarre. Like I would have expected 5, 6, 7 to be really sweaty, not 4, 5, 6. So that's something we gotta try and do, is have better loot. Adept weapons will give people incentive to go flawless. Maybe have guaranteed ascendant shards every time you go flawless, as opposed as a chance to it. I know the first time you go flawless, like you're supposed to get it, those masterworking materials, and then after that, it's like a random chance on that character. So if we have it where it's every time, people can go off and do it. And if someone's like, well, that will break the armor system game, I really don't think so. Like, you can only hold so many Ascendant shards on a character and an account. It costs quite a bit to use those anyways. And then also the folks that are going flawless consistently every time probably already have the stuff masterworked that they want to have masterworked anyways. And masterworking gear, unless you're in that really top tier echelon where the stats and everything make a huge difference, isn't that big of a deal when you're coming to like most players. Like most players that I meet don't even care too much about what their stats are. Like when I'm like, hey, like what's your stats? Like when we're trying to do something, like, oh, well, what do you mean? Like, oh, like you're a hunter, so you want to have high mobility so you can get your dodge back more often. Like, what? That's a thing? So I'm not even sure stats are that big of a deal to worry about having too many people with masterworked armor, and then they're all getting sunset before too long. Anyways, I still don't see the point of being stingy with those resources, especially with how hard it is to get flawless. So far we're at making it more fun by really and building that player base by eliminating cheating, or at least doing something to make it where we feel like cheaters are being punished. And then we gotta have something with the loot. And then finally, we need to make sure we're putting a large effort into balancing and revamping consistently. I notice stuff in PvP can be broken for a long time, and it's not usually fixed until it's busted on the PvE side. So for some reason, we've got these two different game modes, right? We got player versus environment, PvE, and PvP, which is player versus player. People tend to complain more about stuff being busted in player versus player, because when you're in the environment, like raids or whatever, it only helps everyone on the team. Whereas when you're in the actual mode against other players, people are getting mad, they're getting frustrated. And so I see lots of folks complaining about stuff being broken in PvP, and there's not that much complaining about PvE. But for some reason, the trend, not always, but the trend is that a weapon or a build, something, doesn't get messed with in PvP unless it's busted to hell and they decide to do something about it in PvE, which I find to be super weird. Now, this has resulted in some people saying that Destiny should be 2 games. You should have 1 game you buy that's player versus environment, 1 that's player versus player. That way, it's 2 different build teams, 2 different games. Like they can kind of like account link or something out. It's kind of complicated sounding, but at face value, that doesn't seem like a bad idea, right? When things are being adjusted from the PvE side, but that's not going to really work, right? Because Destiny has been built upon having both in the same game. People are going to be even more pissed about how, well, great, now I have to buy 2 games, right? And then you're going to have probably variances, and well, Destiny the PvP game is way better than Destiny the PvE. So it makes complete sense to keep them together. So we just gotta find some way where Bungie will actually fix stuff on the PvP side without either really messing with it on the PvE side, or finding just something to make it where stuff does not have to be broken, where everyone's happy with it, as opposed to PvP. For example, the Riven cheese. Technically, that's cheating. Technically, like Bungie has come out and said, like, hey, it's our fault, we're going to leave it in there. So that whole cheese thing to make the boss really easy, where very few people have beaten Riven legitimately, is actually a cheat/cheese that should have probably been fixed a couple of years ago, but none of us really care because it only helps us. So you don't have to do the pain in the butt Riven fight. I did it legit once. I would love to do it again, but I've got enough other stuff going on. And then we've got like things like Jotun, for example, got reduced at some point. I wish I could remember exactly when, but my memory serves me correctly. Jotun got nerfed on the PvE side and is still strong as hell on PvP. And honestly, the only reason I think more people don't complain about it is because technically it's locked behind a paywall because of it being a part of Black Armory, and there's a lot of Crucible players that are free to play, and so like they wouldn't have it. And I'm pretty sure if more people had this weapon, it'd be a huge problem. So like that's kind of what I'm talking about. When we got stuff on the PvE side, it's not really messed with. But if something's broken, like say the Black Armory forges, that's the better example. The Black Armory AFK forge farming from beginning of Season 11, Season of Arrivals. That shit got fixed in like 4 days. Now, I'm not the kind of person to be like, yeah, you should definitely be AFK and just get all the resources and umbrals and all that stuff. But I'm like, you know what? You do you. That's how you want to use your time, or I guess do other stuff, and that's how you want to play, then fine. But they fixed that crap in like 4 days, and you still got all these other PvP issues like cheaters, lack of loot. We haven't had any decent loot inside of Crucible only for quite a while. I want to say like a year, in my opinion. And so PvE gets fixed like that, like usually. Like Riven's kind of an odd example I use. I guess I'm not sure why I used it, because Riven's an example of them leaving it alone forever. But that was something they they addressed without people really complaining about it. So I guess it kind of works. So that's kind of what I mean. So in conclusion, I'm not playing Trials because it's not fun. There's like no loot. I got no incentive to do it. It's not worth my time. There's plenty of other things I can do to get more loot. Like I could get like 6 pinnacle weapons, or 4, I guess, from a raid in like an hour and a half, and get like maybe 2 powerful rewards in like 2 hours. So it's not worth the time. We also got to just make the game more fun, and I think we'll make the game more fun by building up that player base, giving those cheaters quick, swift kicks to the rear as far as bans and boots goes, and suspensions, as well as just trying to bring in some more loot and working on some balancing and things. I think things will go a lot better. I'm really nervous to see how season 11 drops because of all those abilities with freezing stuff. I've been told it's not just hunters that can do things like build walls and freeze people. I guess time will tell. From the trailer, it kind of looked like the hunter class is going to make PvP miserable, so I'm glad I think my lucky stars that I got both my PvP titles done, because it's going to, God bless you suckers who are having to try and deal with this in the fall, or I guess November, because I guarantee it's going to be broken as heck for the first probably month as far as how abilities go. Alright, y'all, let me know down below what you guys think. Do you find Trials fun? Do you hate it? Do you agree with the reasons that I gave? Do you have things you want to add? Just let me know down below, and I'll try to get to every comment as I can. That's something I try to do really hard with my channel. Thank you all so much for watching. I am Church of Caboose. Have a great week, and happy grinding, y'all. Thank you.